Welcome to SODFS, brought to you by Sons of Dynasty and proud members of True North Fantasy Football. Follow us at Dynasty Sons and subscribe to the TNFF network so that you never miss a show. I'm Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Brown NFL. And here to my left is Nate. You can find him at Nate_FFL. Nate, what's going on? Another Thursday night. Here we are, buddy.
I'm so excited to be here. It seems like every Thursday tends to be a rough day at work, but it always gets better when I'm here with you. Just watching the Washington football team Giants game. Got some brutal stuff going on there, so I need this pick me up here.
Yeah. The Giants actually looked pretty decent on that opening drive, so maybe they'll move the ball against this stout Washington defense. But let's get into some news and notes and maybe catch up on the game after the show's over.
Yeah, sounds good, man. So touching on the Washington football team, we're going to talk briefly about Ryan Fitzpatrick. Very unfortunate to see him go down week one really early in the game. A lot of us had high hopes for him. It was, coming out of Miami last year when he got benched for Tua when the team was looking so good. It just sucks to see it happen. The good news is that they have given him the option, or he has chosen the option, whether to go without surgery and choose rehab. So it's still looking like a 6 to 8 week timeline, but hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. We'd love to see him in the game. Speaking on the Dolphins again, his former teammate, Will Fuller, actually it wasn't his teammate because he was with the Texans, but Will Fuller with the Dolphins now, one of my favorite players this year in fantasy football. I think a guy that's very underrated. He was actually unavailable for practice Thursday, which is not something we expected considering he's coming off. We all knew he had the suspension, but then he's not at practice Thursday, and it's unclear why his absence happened. So that concerns me a bit. I don't understand fully what's happening. None of us do. I hope he's okay. He's priced at 4,800 on DraftKings this week. I'd like to put him in the lineup, but for that to happen, we need to know that he's good to go.
Yeah, I did see a report came out that just said personal reasons. So, that could be numerous things, but I do not think it's anything injury related.
That's good news. I did not catch that. I'm glad to hear that.
Moving on into the Jets with Jamison Crowder, who missed week one. He has officially been activated off the COVID list. Mike LaFleur will be hard-pressed to find Crowder reps after the team already struggled to play Denzel Mims, Keelan Cole, and Crowder in week one. We saw Elijah Moore and Corey Davis, continue to be the true one. Now with Crowder back in the mix, we'll see what that does. Probably Elijah Moore will lose a few snaps here, but it's really anyone's guess at this point. I'm probably not going to get too much exposure to this passing game outside of Corey Davis this week to really just kind of see how the rest of the target share unfolds. As far as the Ravens running backs go, Tyson Williams, who looked off to a hot, fresh start this past week and then kind of fizzed out in the second half. We saw a lot more Lat Murray. Ravens coaches did come out, I think, today or yesterday and say that they do plan to use a full-blown committee and that he didn't necessarily do anything to get benched in the second half. It's more of they're just going to use a rotation. And for me, that kind of sounds like a headache. So I am going to be a little bit wary on most of these Ravens running backs until we really see one command, the most attention that we can really count on a weekly basis. Colts cornerback Xavier Rhodes remains sidelined Wednesday. I'm not sure. I did not see a practice update on him today. He is their top corner, but he did get burned, this past week as well. So we'll see if for whatever reason he's unable to go against the Rams. Woods and Kupp would probably be the quick beneficiaries of an already weakened secondary there for the Colts. I think Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
I was just gonna say I'm liking that matchup. With Rhodes out, it just gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. So any other news? Did you hear anything about DeAndre Swift? I feel like I saw a blurb, something about a groin injury. Can you confirm for our listeners there in Detroit?
So we've been seeing the concerns about the groin injury since the start of training camp. It's hard for me to put a lot of weight into it because I don't know how serious it is. You know what I mean? Because they've been saying all training camp, oh, there's a groin injury. But knowing the little bit of behind the scenes stuff that I do know that a lot of it was protection. They're not going to put him in there, put him at risk for injury. I want to say that's the case, but I can't promise it because, as good as the little bit of behind the talk scene stuff that I hear, I don't know for sure. I think in the bottom of my heart, I think he's fine. I think they're not going to risk it at practice. I love that. I love that they're not going to let him get hurt. He's going to be getting a lot of carries this year. Protect him. If that's not the case, if something maybe really is happening, I just hope that's not true,
Yeah, well, I think we all do. But if for whatever reason he were to miss, Jamal Williams would probably end up being a quality play across any format of fantasy football. But we won't speculate on coulda, shoulda, wouldas. As far as we know, DeAndre Swift will be available to play and receive his, substantial workload that we saw. We really saw that Lions offense funnel between those three guys. And if one of them were to miss, obviously the other two would stand to benefit greatly, along with maybe another ancillary piece there for the Detroit Lions.
They didn't look bad either. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we don't expect monstrous things from this Lions offense. Me as a Lions diehard homer, they didn't look too bad. Sure, the Niners put in some backups at the end, but they came through with the numbers, and in fantasy football, that's what we care about.
Well, Nate, let's move on into the 1 o'clock games. First up here on the board, we have the 49ers at the Eagles with a total points of 50 on the board. This is a game that both you and I have kind of talked about. There's some pieces mixed around in here that we are high on, one of those being a quarterback for the Eagles that I know you and I are both high on. We were high on last week, and we continue to be high until he tells us any different, and that's Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. He continues to show us that he's an elite option at the quarterback with his week 1 performance, throwing for 3 touchdowns, 264 yards to go along with another 60-plus yards on the ground, which happens to be his floor. He has a week 2 matchup against these 49ers that's tougher than the Falcons, I'll admit, but they did just allow your lowly Detroit Lions to put up 33 points and Jared Goff to put up a substantial amount of yardage. So I think the possibility for Hurts to have another positive showing here in week 2 is definitely there. Nate, tell me how you feel about Jalen Hurts this week.
You already said it. Give us a reason not to like you. The rushing upside's there. I love Jalen Hurts. I'm going to need a reason to take him out of my DFS lineups at this point. The stat line looks good. I have a ton of respect for him. The rushing upside's there. And then to combine that, they're playing the 49ers this week, which is the team I just watched my Lions actually almost come back and win against. So the Lions were managed to have Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift and Goff all be successful against him. Why can't Jalen Hurts, have some success? And in my heart of hearts, I think the 49ers may be struggling with Robert Saleh leaving and going to the Jets. Could be wrong. It was one game. We can't take too much for one game, but that's how I'm feeling right now. For me, I'm going to lock him in cash and GPP, 6,500 on DraftKings.
Yeah, well, moving on to the other side of the game there with the 49ers, let's talk about running back Elijah Mitchell, priced at $5,000 this week on DK, is one of the better values as far as I'm concerned at the running back position with a substantial ceiling to boot. And, as we know with Raheem Mostert on IR, Mitchell becomes one of the best running back values on this slate. He went down in the first quarter Sunday after 2 carries with an ankle injury, and we saw Mitchell come in and really capitalize. The Trey Sermon saga, I think, is going to continue. We'll see who the actives are this week. I think I saw a report that maybe they brought Trenton Cannon in as well, potentially to the practice squad. So obviously Shanahan is still continuing to look to bolster this running back rotation. I don't know if that's an indictment on Trey Sermon or just looking to get more bodies for the inevitable 49er running back injuries that we often see. Nate, where are you at on Elijah? Are you feeling him this week in any format?
I'm feeling him, but I'm nervous because we don't know what the hell is going on with Trey Sermon right now. He was drafted, I believe. It's been a while since the draft. I believe 2 rounds higher than Elijah Mitchell. Correct me if I'm wrong, but right now Elijah Mitchell's looking great. Is he going to be a healthy scratch this week? What is happening? What is going on there? I don't know. I do have Mitchell plugged into some lineups right now. That could change. So you're going to want to follow us on Twitter for that last minute stuff come Sunday morning.
Yeah, definitely. But I think he's an option especially in GPPs. But back on over to the Eagles side with Myles Sanders at 6,900. Nate, where are you at with Myles Sanders?
So if anybody, this is almost awkward for me. If anybody follows me on Twitter, you know that I was saying avoid Myles Sanders at all costs come 2021 in fantasy football. Full disclosure, that was not in DFS. This is a whole different ball game because this is a week-to-week thing. It's not a hate thing. I respect Myles Sanders' talent. He's explosive. He's a good running back. He was great at Penn State. I'm just not sure how much the Eagles buy into him. However, this week we're going to back it up a bit. He's facing the 49ers. Obviously, we just watched DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams run all over that Niners defense. So this week, how do you not like Myles Sanders? I'm going to limit my exposure because I don't want to, have too many shares. But last week he had 15 carries, 74 yards in week 1. I think his numbers improved this week. I think you're going to see that tutty in week 2. I think at 6,900 his price, it's a bit high. It's kind of like to that point where you're like, wow, do I play him or not? But for as far as this week, I'm going to throw him in a couple lineups, couple GPPs, see how he does. Don't limit your expectations, but I would say have confidence in throwing him in there in a few. My favorite guy, however, from this Eagles team is Devonta Smith. A lot of people hated on him coming into the season. He's too small, he's too little, blah blah blah. Week 1 came out 6 catches, 71 yards, touchdown. Week 1. He's back this week, 5,400 on DraftKings. His price point's up $900 from last week, but that's still solid. You're still getting a great play for under 5,500. I'm all about it. I am locking Devonta Smith into my GPPs and cash plays.
Yeah, if I'm playing Jalen Hurts, I think Devonta Smith is the obvious option as far as me looking to stack somebody. So at 5,400, that's still a bargain price. I think that we're going to continue to see that price to climb week in and week out until he settles somewhere in the 65 to 68 range. I think will probably be where he's at about middle of the season's end, unless he just really balls out, and we could see him get up into the 7s. But right now at 5,400, I'm definitely still in on Devonta Smith. Let's take it on over, though, to the Bengals and Bears with the total points set at 45 in this game. Bears have been a team that have really been a team that I've struggled to get behind as far as the fantasy options go. I'd really like to see Justin Fields come in and be the starter and then let the weapons really blossom around him. But while we're seeing this kind of back and forth, the same thing that we're seeing with San Fran, and it's unlike what I feel like we've seen before in years past with rookie quarterbacks. And here we have 2 NFL franchises doing the same thing, kind of using a tandem quarterback, if you will, here. And it's a little frustrating. I'd really like to see Fields be that starter so I could feel good about the weapons around him. But so long as Dalton's the QB and we're getting a little bit of mixture, it just seems like a situation that I'm staying away from. Nate, how about you? How do you feel about the Bengals or the Bears in this game?
As far as the quarterbacks go, I agree. I don't think you'll find a single person on Twitter that disagrees with you. We all want to see Justin Fields in the game, but we all have to also be patient and understand that the fact of the matter is that, maybe it's best for him to take a couple weeks, couple months even to learn. I would love to see him in there lighting up these other teams, but for now, we're going to have to, show that patience, let him, do his thing, develop a little bit. I don't think it's going to hurt him at all. That's for sure. As far as the Bengals go, Joe Burrow last week, the Bengals didn't really look too bad. They actually looked halfway decent despite, that very weak offensive line. This week, you're looking at a matchup against the Bears defense that we're not really sure of how they are this, at this point in the year. I know Burrow is priced way cheap. It's almost like Vegas is like majorly disrespecting Burrow at 5,800 on DraftKings. So I have some interest in GPPs because it's worth a dart throw. You know what I mean? Throw him in a couple GPPs. He could throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, it could happen easy. So I'm not saying go out there and load up your lineups with Joe Burrow, but if you're taking a shot in a Millie Maker, throw Joe Burrow in there, pair him with Jamar Chase. You got a nice little stack there that a lot of people aren't going to be onto.
Yeah, I absolutely like targeting Joe Burrow at this price point and stacking him with Jamar Chase. I do think that Jamar Chase is the real deal, despite the reports that we were hearing during the preseason about Chase's struggles. He led the Bengals wide receivers in snaps with 62, routes run with 30, targets with 7, and yards with 101. So, he had a PFF receiving grade of 79.8 while finishing with 20.9 fantasy points. This matchup against the Bears, it's not the same Bears that they were 2 years ago. And with the volume that we can expect to see out of this Cincinnati offense on a weekly basis, until they put some respect on Jamar Chase's price moving forward, he's going to be a staple in my lineups, no matter the format.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that's great advice. Jamar Chase is still priced too cheap. Everybody was hating on him in the preseason. He came in last week. He showed that, he's not someone to sleep on. So I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, he's only $800 more expensive than this next guy that I'm going to talk about, who I'm also kind of buying into for this week 2 matchup, and that's Darnell Mooney, priced at $4,200. But just to get back to Chase for a second, at only $800 more, I feel much more confident in my Jamar Chase play this week than I do Darnell Mooney. Mooney's more of a GPP play. I don't think that his ownership will be very high. And because in week 1 we saw the Bears really kind of struggled to get rolling, but Darnell Mooney was kind of showing us all the peripherals that you were looking for. Even though he didn't have the greatest of production in week 1, he led the Bears in routes with 45, finished second in targets with 7, and second in receptions with 5. So while Allen Robinson is the clear wide receiver 1 for the Bears, Mooney is arguably the team's best versatile weapon and has led them in deep targets with 23, screens 8, all of last season. So with a much easier opponent in the Bengals this week, Mooney can definitely expose the Cincinnati defense. And I think that I am going to have a decent amount of exposure, probably not a stack, but, maybe attacking the other side of the ball, getting a Darnell Mooney in. If you do have that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack, a little Darnell Mooney exposure there on the other side could really put you in a nice situation.
That's a solid point too. You don't always have to stack. It is widely advised, but you don't always have to do the bounce back either. So don't feel like just because you're playing a couple Bengals, you got to play a Bear. I just want to touch on that real quick. But something I do want to touch on is Cole Kmet, because I'm not a fan of I'm not in the Kmet club. I'm not in that big thing. It's no disrespect to Cole Kmet. I think he's a great tight end. I think there's a ton of potential there, but my thing that I like is his price point, $3,700. Last week, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 42 yards, and a loss to the Rams. I think that's attractive. When you're looking, generally, most of us we tend to jump down, in tight end pricing. We want to target somebody a little bit lower, save some money, plug in our studs most of the time. So with Cole Kmet at $3,700, if you're playing in GPP, you're talking about saving, some solid amount of cash. So last week his ownership was around 20%. This week it could even be lower, considering he didn't get a touchdown last week. So I like plugging him in, in this Bears game. I think that's a solid play. But we're going to kind of slide on past that. We're going to go to the Bills-Dolphins game, over under at 48.5. I want to talk about a guy that I think is kind of gross. people could disagree. Josh Allen, 7,200 last week. Josh Allen was not the Bills quarterback that we are used to. Him and Stefon Diggs, Cole Beasley, they connected 17 times for 129 yards. That is not the numbers we're used to seeing. Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, I apologize if I said that wrong, called for a pass over two-thirds of the times on Bills reps. So it's solid, but it's kind of, questioning. We don't know what's happening with this Bills team right now. They're facing the Dolphins this week. That defense to me is underrated by far. So I think you're going to see more struggles. I'm not sleeping, on this Dolphins defense. I think you're going to watch this week. I think you're going to have average numbers. As far as DFS goes, I am not playing a single Bills player. 100 people could disagree with me. My opinion is I'm avoiding all Buffalo Bills players.
Yeah, no, I will echo that sentiment. I think that Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs, both at their price points, are kind of easy fades for me this week. Stefon Diggs at 7,700. When Diggs faced off with Howard in Week 17 last year, Xavier held him to a 2 for 26 line. With the volume that we are seeing in the passing game from Buffalo this year, obviously enough volume could, supersede even the toughest of matchups. But, just with this price point right here, there's a slew of guys, that are closer to the 7,000 range that I would much rather play over Stefon Diggs in this matchup. And if I'm not big on Stefon Diggs, there's a good chance I'm not going to be in on Josh Allen at his 7,200 either. So I'm with you on that as far as fading Bills. Dolphins exposure to at 55, with Will Fuller coming back in. And Waddle, he seems like he's the real deal as well. I might be up to putting in a Dolphins stack, but I think overall this is a game that I could even see maybe hitting the under on that 48.5 points. We could really just look at more of a slugfest, if you will, here. Any other wide receivers there for Miami that you're targeting in particular?
I'll tell you that we made some last-minute changes last week at the very end there. I plugged in Devontae Parker. You said, man, that's a good shout. And I thought it was too, and he let me down hardcore. This week, his price is up a slight amount. I'm not feeling it. If there's a Dolphins receiver I'm touching, it's Will Fuller. Like we said at the beginning of the show, we have no idea what's going on with the healthy scratch. It's probably a personal issue. Prayers up to him. We hope everything's okay. If Fuller is in at 4,800, I'm gonna have him in some GPPs for sure. There's no way I'm not at that price point. Will Fuller has talent. He's a talented wide receiver. I believe in the guy. I'll stand by that day after day. Jalen Waddle's priced at 4,500. Yeah, give or take. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could play him. I'm not overly sold on it. Last week, 61 receiving yards. I'm not super excited. Mike Gesicki crushed my my home league. I plugged him in at my tight end on my season-long league, and he shattered my heart. So I have a lot of hard feelings towards him. But as far as Mike Gesicki against the Bills defense is nothing to slouch at. You're going to want to be careful there. There's none of these guys really like make me excited. I'm actually kind of feeling like I should avoid a lot of these guys. And there's a lot of games like that this week. Don't be afraid to, if you're having bad vibes against some of these defenses, don't play them. That's my best advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this, like we mentioned, even days ago, this Bills-Dolphins game just doesn't quite feel like one that we're going to see a plethora of fantasy points going around. So, maybe look on to the next game, and we will do just that with the Broncos at the Jaguars with a 45 over-under on this game. Trevor Lawrence coming in at 6,000 on DraftKings. In Week 1, Trevor Lawrence completed 28 of 51 passes for 332 yards with 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. In the loss to the Texans, we really saw this Jaguars team struggle. Trevor Lawrence, he seemed like he started to kind of get his feet underneath him a little bit, but this Texans defense was giving him problems from the get-go. at 6,000, it feels a little pricey for me, even with this matchup. Against a stout Broncos defense, I don't think I'll be going anywhere near Trevor Lawrence, or not really having any confidence in his receiving weapons for that matter either. Everybody was all over Marvin Jones Jr. this past week. Maybe you could get some exposure to him if you did indeed plug in Trevor Lawrence. But for the most part, this Jaguars team is a team that I am again fading as a whole unit this upcoming Sunday.
I simply want to give you the shout out for Marvin Jones last week. That was all you on this podcast on True North FF. You said play Marvin Jones and he came through. So props to you, my friend.
Yeah, well, I don't think that there was many people that weren't playing Marvin Jones or at least yelling that from the rooftop. So while I appreciate your pat on the back,
his ownership wasn't that high though, buddy.
It was lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people talking smack about him too and saying, it's going to be, the other guys. So you deserve the respect there.
Well, Chark got the volume, but damn it if he didn't do anything with it.
That's never mind.
Hey, let's go back over to the Broncos here. Talk about Teddy Bridgewater at 5,400. Bridgewater largely completed passes near the line of scrimmage in week one. His longest completion of the day went for 25 yards and completed only 2 passes of gains more than 10 yards. As far as this game goes, I'm kind of expecting the Broncos to really lean onto the run game. So Teddy B, while, the price point there is not too aggressive for my likings, and with the loss of Jerry Jeudy, a couple of new weapons, I'd probably like to see how the targets shake out here in week 2. If Sutton does indeed become the alpha that we know he can be, or if Tim Patrick continues to be a thorn, and KJ Hamler's always good for a 90-yard screen to the house. But I kind of want to see it play out here in this week, in a week that I don't expect the Broncos to have to be super competitive to keep up with the Texans or the Jaguars, excuse me. But I am high on a running back here from the Broncos, and that's rookie Javonte Williams at 4,400. In week 1, we saw a split backfield in Denver. And while it was Melvin Gordon that did end up with the long touchdown run to give him the better finish, Williams had 15 opportunities in a tough matchup, and he equaled Gordon's 33 snaps. Gordon ran 19 routes while Williams ran 15. This week they face the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I believe Williams will absolutely feast. I think they're going to feature the rookie a little bit more this week and let him get some run in the juicy matchup. So I am expecting them to lean on the run this week, and I do like Javonte Williams over Melvin Gordon this week. And I think the presence of one and the other is really enough to keep the ownership low for both of them. So, either one could definitely have a smash week. You want to get super contrarian, go ahead and plug both of them into your lineup and stack the running back rotation there for Denver, because that's which way I think that this game is really going to lean to.
I'm feeling that a lot, man. As a guy that many of you know was calling Javonte Williams my RB1 coming into the year, my opinion on that may have slightly differed. He's still my RB1. I have a ton of respect for Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, but I have a ton of love for Javonte Williams. I cannot wait until he is the solidified RB1 in Denver. It could start happening soon. I think Dan's 100% right. At this price point, you can plug him in. He could land 18, 20 carries this week. If he does, man, you're looking good. But bouncing across, the biggest appeal to me in this week is the porous defense of the Denver Broncos. I like James O'Shaughnessy of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think both defenses are not looking great. O'Shaughnessy he's a guy that nobody really was talking about last week. He ran 40 routes, second most of any tight end one last week. Was targeted 8 times. He got 6 receptions, 48 yards. That's not great numbers. We can expect those to probably improve. He's got a lot of upside. Don't set your expectations to this huge amount where you're expecting a ton of numbers, but I'm kind of liking the way things are looking there. As far as the Denver Broncos receivers and tight end situation is going, we got KJ Hamler at 3,800, Tim Patrick 4,600, Noah Fant is at 4,200. Noah Fant's far too underpriced. I'm loving Noah Fant this week. The tight end situation is looking sticky. I don't like any of the options. I honestly kind of hate all of them. Last week, Fant had 6 catches, 8 targets, 62 yards. I just feel like it's gross, and I feel like Fant's one of the safer options because the Jags D looked disgusting last week. So I'm kind of thinking that my go-to option this week is going to be Noah Fant, 4,200 cash GPP. I think that I'm going to lock him in at both. To be honest, it's a gamble. I think he could get that. He's going to need that touchdown. He could get that touchdown, get you 12 to 15 points. He could bust and get you nothing. So there's a gamble there, but with the way the tight ends are looking, I'm grossed out, but I feel like Fant's one of the options I'm kind of more comfortable with. I don't know about you, Dan.
Yeah, no, I do like Fant. Like I mentioned, with Jerry Jeudy out there are extra targets up for grabs, and we saw that Noah Fant can do some damage in this offense with Teddy Bridgewater under center. So I think it's a good play this week, and if he does see that volume, you're bound to see that price increase next week. But let's move on into the Patriots at the Jets, over under 42.5. And another game, like we mentioned, that I don't find myself really wanting any part of. As we mentioned with Zach Wilson and the weapons around him, Jamison Crowder coming back in, what are the targets going to look like this week? Corey Davis being the only alpha in that offense that we're even interested at this week at 5,300. Nate, I know you were big into Corey Davis this past week, and lo and behold, he did end up pulling through. So kudos to you. What about this week, week 2? Is Corey Davis going back into your lineup once more?
Do not hate on my guy. Corey Davis is the man in New York. I don't care what anybody says. I'm all in on Corey Davis. There's going to be bad games here and there. There was a lot of talk. Corey Davis can't perform against number 1 DBs. I don't want to hear it because he's done it already. Corey Davis is still priced way, way too cheap. $5,300. You're going to want to put him in your lineups this week. I don't care. I'm all about Corey Davis. He had 5 receptions last week, 7 targets, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder's coming back. Who gives a crap? Jamison Crowder is nobody. The price point is very fair. You want Corey Davis in your lineups. If he fails you, you can add me on Twitter. We'll talk about it. Until he does, plug him in, play him, make some money with us, please. I also want to talk about Braxton Berrios. Shout out to our guy, Will Harris, over there at Verdine Global. Braxton Berrios is, I should say that Will Harris is a 100% the biggest believer in Braxton Berrios.
The only one we know.
I was going to say the only human being on the planet that believes in Braxton Berrios. Nothing but respect, man. Berrios had 7 targets last week, 5 catches, 51 yards. I'm sure Will was extremely stoked. Unfortunately, I haven't talked to him since then. But, you can't ignore these numbers. Berrios, he performed. He's at 3,600 this week. He's worth the plug and play at, in GPPs. Well, I have him in my lineups, probably not a lot, but he's worth a shot here and there.
Hey, Nate, our good buddy, Coach Craig Sports, is in the comments. He's been with us most of the night. We appreciate you, Coach. He wants to know if there's any concern with the Patriots almost always taking away the opposing team's top option, which de facto we've talked about is indeed Corey Davis. Are you worried about Pesky Bill ruining your parade for week 2 with Corey Davis?
I'm 100% not worried about that. And I want to give Coach a shout out because Coach is probably the biggest supporter of the show we have. A guy I talk to on a daily basis, a guy that has actually DM'd me this question already, so I appreciate it. But again, Coach, I'm not worried.
Well, let's move on to the next game. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of that game that I'm looking forward to. This next one's a little bit interesting, though. Raiders at the Steelers, 47 points for the over-under. And last week, one of my misses was indeed Najee Harris. I was really kind of pounding the drum for this guy coming out the gate week one, and we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers just really look flat out terrible with the Bills there in week one. Not only did Najee Harris not really get rolling, but most of the offense really struggled. But I'm going to go back to my guy, Najee Harris, again this week. He was a big letdown week one, but playing 100% of the snaps. There's not many running backs in today's NFL that are doing that. So if you can give me 100% snaps, the production is coming. I think it was more or less just a stutter from this Pittsburgh offense. And this week, the Steelers take on the Raiders. Najee should continue to have one of the biggest workloads in the league. After running 30 routes on Big Ben's 38 dropbacks, and the receiving upside is there, and it's too strong to ignore. He's priced at 6,100 this week, and the Raiders 28.8 fantasy points per game to the running back position this past year. I think that it is just another opportunity for me to once again put Najee Harris back into the limelight here, and I'm hoping my guy can come through for me this week. Nate, are you feeling good about me putting Najee back into our lineups again?
I just want to say, don't doubt Najee. The 100% snap share thing is big. That's really, really, really big that the Steelers believe in him. He averaged I could be wrong. I think it was 2.7 yards per carry. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there in the comments, but
Craig.
Craig. But while that's concerning, there's also plenty of reason to be excited about that. I also have a big belief that as much as I really don't believe in Big Ben, this could be a week where he shines through against the Raiders at home. If he's going to do anything, it's going to be at home, and it's going to be against that Raiders defense that we just watched struggle mightily against Baltimore on Monday night. So I'm not even advising you to play him, but, it's worth a look.
I just want to say to anybody that is tuned in with us tonight, we do appreciate you tuning in. Whether this is the first time or you've been with us for the last few shows, we really do appreciate you. And, feel free to hit us up and let us know how the show is going. If there's anything you'd like to see, Coach, I know you've messaged me several times, and I'm going to get in on some of those that you're talking about, I promise. But anybody else tuning in, I appreciate you. Hit the thumbs up. It really does help us out. We're trying to bring you the best content that we possibly can. So let us know what we can do to be better for you guys, so we can produce for you.
Yeah, I agree. We're still learning. We're trying to find our rhythm. We're trying to find our groove in this, and we do nothing perfect. We're human beings. We both work full time. We have families. We're trying to do our best, but so constructive criticism is very much appreciated. Real quick though, I just want to jump back at that Raiders Steelers game. Hunter Renfrow was a guy that a lot of people laughed at me about on Twitter the other night when we were doing the showdown, like the captain mode. A lot of people were like, 2,800 Hunter Renfrow. He's the slot guy for the Steelers. It's Derek Carr's go-to on third down. He's at 3,600. He's up still. He's up not $1,000, but $800. But it's a guy that's worth looking at. It's a gross matchup against Pittsburgh this week. He had 9 targets last week, 70 yards. I'm not against playing him. I would say it's 150% only GPP. Don't touch him in cash. On the other hand, move across the ball, Darren Waller, 19 targets, more targets than any tight end, more targets per, I haven't confirmed this, but probably more targets than any wide receiver. Dan, do you know, is there anybody that had more than 19 targets?
I don't believe so. I think he was the target leader in week one.
That's insanely ridiculous. What sucks is a lot of them missed because Carr was off at the beginning of the game, but still caught 10 of them, 105 yards, touchdown. We had Waller in our captain slate. The game did go to overtime. It ended up being 33-27. It was extremely entertaining to watch. This week, I mean, every week, you can plug Darren Waller in. He's going to produce. The guy's story just even beyond football. I mean, overcoming addiction, what he's done for the sport, what he is, the kind of human being he is. How do you not cheer for this guy? I have him in my lineups every week. I love Darren Waller's price points at 7,600 on DraftKings this week. It's not a bad price point. He's the highest priced tight end, but he's a pretty safe bet to score you a minimum, I would say, of 20 points. So you can lock and load him. Cash plays. He's the guy you're gonna want.
Yeah, but hopping back over to the Steelers ball, let's talk a little Steelers wide receiver, starting with my man Diontae Johnson at 6,400 this week. As I mentioned, the Steelers really struggled week one. Johnson was, however, able to bring in 5 of his 10 targets for 36 yards and a touchdown. Not a great showing for Diontae, but another week with double-digit targets. Expecting a better showing for the Steelers this week, Diontae being a focal point in that passing game. I do like Diontae Johnson here at 6,400. Juju coming in at 5,700. He was able to secure 4 of his 8 targets for 52 yards. Juju continues to be a safe PPR option, but I feel like he really needs to get into the end zone to return value this week at 5,700. So I'll probably be fading Juju this week. Claypool just $100 cheaper at 5,600. Second-year receiver made an impact despite recording just 4 total touches. We saw him with a 25-yard run and checked in second in receiving yardage behind Juju Smith-Schuster, despite the tough road matchup against the Bills. All weapons I do believe are going to fare better this week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is a team that when they start clicking, I think we are going to see a lot of fantasy points getting churned out of this Pittsburgh Steelers team. And I think the Raiders matchup is a good matchup for them to get back on track. Nate, you want to take us into our next game?
Yeah, we're going to talk Rams versus Colts next. The over-under is projected currently at 47 points. That's probably going to change. I think it could go up, honestly. But I'm going to pair 2 guys together, Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford is priced currently at $6,400. Cooper Kupp at $6,000. It's a good price point for both these guys. We've seen him shine the other night on TV. Al Michaels or I don't remember exactly who it was. They were saying, they eat breakfast together. So that's the key to everything. The key to everything is that Cooper Kupp plays the slot and Matthew Stafford loves the slot guy. So that's what we're going to lean on. I love both of them in this matchup. I think the price point is extremely fair. Kupp had 10 targets last week. So 10 targets is pretty considerable. He had 7 catches off of those, 108 yards to score. Like I said, the point total is looking not really nice, so we're gonna lean on that. We're gonna go as far as my GPPs go. The Stafford Kupp stack is one of my favorites because I don't think a lot of people are going to be on it. So I'm all about pairing those 2 together. You could even go Robert Woods if you want to go more contrarian because I don't think don't just rule Robert Woods out yet just because he didn't have a great game last week. Matthew Stafford is going to throw in LA. Under Sean McVay, he's going to light it up, and you want a piece of that. On the other side of the ball in that game, we got Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back, $7,200. I like it. A lot of people were extremely disappointed with Jonathan Taylor's stat line, even though he had a ton of catches. He was extremely involved. Do not let 1 week, just take you out of contention of playing him. He was really involved. He just didn't, he didn't have the production we wanted. So his ownership's probably going to be down. So lock him in this week, load him in your lineups and, reap the benefits because I promise you that Jonathan Taylor is not done this year. We also have Tyler Higbee, Rams tight end at 4,100. This is a guy I'm wishy-washy on. Honestly, as a lifelong Stafford fan, he likes his tight ends. We've seen the proof, in Detroit. What he's going to do with Higbee in LA, I can't promise you. At 4,100 though, it's worth a dice roll if you're looking GPP and think, hey, maybe he could very, very, very easily throw a touchdown, maybe even a second touchdown to Higbee. So if you're desperate at tight end, throw Higbee in there in a GPP. I mean, don't expect anything more than probably 15, 16 points, but it's worth a shot. Why not?
Yeah, at 4,100, I don't mind the value there on Higbee. In years past, we've really seen Sean McVay get the running backs a little bit more involved in the passing game, but that wasn't the case week one. It seemed like most of the targets were going to the wide receivers or the tight end position. So at 4,100, with Matthew Stafford, I do. We'll probably have a little bit of exposure to Tyler Higbee unless I'm paying up at the tight end position with like a Darren Waller. But if not, I'm going to be Tyler Higbee or down as far as where I'm paying for tight ends. But let's move on into the next game, and that is the Saints at the Panthers with an over-under of 44. Jameis Winston was mobile in the pocket and rarely made any overly aggressive decisions in week one. Which seemed to be his trademark in Tampa Bay. He also showed decent accuracy, and after never topping 65% completion rate in any of his 5 seasons with the Bucs, now gets a decent matchup against a Panthers secondary that just allowed 250 plus and 2 touchdowns to rookie Zach Wilson, who by most accounts, most people think struggled in week one. So if we can see Jameis Winston maybe get a little uptick in volume, I don't think what we saw from them in week one is the norm, not by any standard for that matter, but the volume's probably going to come up this week. The efficiency is definitely going to drop down. But at 6,100 in this game, I don't mind having a little bit of exposure to Jameis Winston this week, probably more so than I would, let's say, Sam Darnold at 5,200, who in week one completed 24 of 35 passes for 279 yards and a touchdown in a win over the Jets. He also added a rushing touchdown. This is a much tougher matchup for Sam Darnold in the Saints, and Sam Darnold is probably a quarterback that I won't have much exposure to on this slate. Staying on that team, though, Christian McCaffrey, it was really good to see him play football again and come out, rush 21 times for 98 yards, caught all 9 of his targets for 89 yards. He had 8 targets and 8 receptions in the first half. I thought he was going to be good for 15, heading into halftime. They slowed down the target volume a little bit for him in the second half, only ended up with 1 more. But he is going to continue to, just put up absurd numbers. I was a little hesitant this past week just coming in. I kind of wanted to see it, but he more than surpassed my expectations for week one, coming in at 9,900 this week. Nate, where are you at on CMC?
I wanted to know what it takes to become the godfather of PPR football when you score no touchdowns and still finishes the RB1. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean that's the name of his game. All he does is put up RB1 numbers, and if it's not the RB1, it's pretty damn close. Another smash RB that I like this week is Alvin Kamara. As suspected, Kamara's usage was up from last year when he had Latavius Murray in the rotation, but with one of the highest usage rates in the league, Kamara should remain a top fantasy play this week against Carolina. Like I mentioned, I don't think the efficiency that we saw from Jameis Winston is going to happen again this week. But I do suspect that the usage that we see from Alvin Kamara is going to go up. If that volume goes up as well, then Kamara should be in for another decent week this week. So I do like Kamara if I am paying up for the running back position at 8,800. Marquez Callaway, last week's chalkiest play that went bad after so much hype. I don't know that there was a bigger letdown than Marquez Callaway in week one, especially when it came down to Jameis Winston tossing 5 touchdowns. Nate, Marquez Callaway actually sees an increase in price after his dunker this past week, 4,200. Winston only needed to throw 20 passes in this one. So Callaway would be an obvious candidate to see the so-called volume that I've been talking about here in week 2. Do you think that there is a rebound for Marquez Callaway here in week 2?
I don't. And I said not to play him last week. I said that his ownership's going to be absolutely ridiculous. We all, as fantasy analysts, many of us on Twitter say to stay fluid. Don't judge everything on one game. In preseason, yeah, he looked awesome in one game. So I don't feel bad at all taking this victory lap when I say that you shouldn't have played Marquez Callaway last week. If you did, I told you not to. I don't feel bad about it. This week, I don't feel it. Even at $4,200, I don't feel it. Is the Saints number one wide receiving option? I don't feel it. I just don't understand the hype. I don't buy in. You guys can call my crow. If he ends up showing up next week and has a touchdown or two, you guys feel free to at me. Let me know I was wrong.
We all want to see preseason Marquez Callaway. All right, regular season Marquez Callaway isn't doing anything for us. If we could get preseason Callaway here in week 2, I think I'd feel a lot better about it.
Can I tell you a secret?
Go ahead.
It's not going to happen.
All right. Well, I don't know if there's a better feeling in DFS than finding one of the chalkiest plays, fading that chalk play, and then seeing that chalk play flop. I mean, that's what we're after right here.
You're talking about finding of chalk plays. How about Nick Chubb last week? I recommended playing him. I was a little bit off on his ownership. I said his projected ownership would be at 3%. So it was a roughly 15%. This week we have the Texans versus the Browns, a projected point total of 48 points. That's very sexy. We love that here. Chubb is, in I think my opinion and Dan's, I think we both love Chubb at this spot. 17 touches last week. Kareem Hunt had 9. We know Hunt's going to get his touches. The key is if the Browns are going to be playing from behind or ahead, because if the Browns are playing from behind, obviously Kareem Hunt's going to be in the game getting them catches and them receptions in PPR leagues. This week against Texans, I'm not sure how many of us fear the Texans defense. It's not me. I'm sorry, coach. I love your team, but it's not happening. I think Chubb is going to be a workhorse this week. I think you're going to get probably 20 to 24 carries. I want to say over 20 points, 7,800 on DraftKings. He's a lock and load for me on DK. Keeping on that side of the football, we got Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks has always been a solidly quiet performer as far as whatever team he's played for. He's been all over the league, but whatever team he's playing for, he's producing. He's just not making a ton of noise. He's at 5,900 on DraftKings this week. Only 3 targets last week, which is weird. It's scary because we don't know what Tyrod Taylor is going to do. Out of those 3 targets, he caught 2. We need to keep an eye on him this week. We don't know, how much Tyrod's going to rely on his wide receiver one. We need to definitely keep our expectations in check because it could be all bad for Brandon Cooks as far as Tyrod leading the team as signal caller. So this week, if you're looking at Tyrod at 5,900, I'm going to advise you, honestly, probably to avoid it. I don't like it. I think it's rather unappealing. You could lock him in on a couple maybe GPPs, but GPPs. But honestly, I don't like it at all. I'm not buying in on it 1%.
Yeah, no, there's not many pieces of this Texans offense that I'm looking to have exposure to outside of Brandon Cooks, and even then, it doesn't feel great when I'm locking him into my lineup. Nick Chubb, as you mentioned, it is a play that I have been looking at, but his price is also getting up there at 7,800 this week. As Coach mentioned in the comments, there are some offensive line injuries that have come about this week and are worth monitoring heading into Sunday's main slate. A couple of cheaper options, though, on the Browns this week that I don't mind. Anthony Schwartz at 3,300 in week 1 with OBJ inactive, who will also be inactive again week 2. Schwartz outsnapped Rashad Higgins 31-4 and was targeted on 5 times, catching 3 passes for 69 yards. OBJ out once again. I don't mind Schwartz as a GPP punt play at 3,300. They seem to really like the speed that this guy does bring, and Baker Mayfield is not afraid to take those deep shots. So, obviously game script aside, Anthony Schwartz worth a punt play as far as I'm concerned now that we have confirmed OBJ will be inactive.
Yeah, so I want to touch real quick on Mark Ingram. The guy, shout out to Flint, Michigan, my hometown. Big ups there. he deserves a little bit of respect. We talked a lot of smack on this these Texans running backs being all over 30 years old coming into the year. He had 86 yards last week on 26 carries and a touchdown. It's probably okay, it's not sustainable. But, shout out Mark Ingram, shout out, his performance. That's solid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think that there was anybody that was going to see Mark Ingram getting 20 plus carries week one, and he did. So, hat tip to Mark Ingram for sure. Nate, you want to tell them about our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight?
We do have some great friends over at Monkey Knife Fight. Real quick, I will tell you, Monkey Knife Fight is the fastest growing DFS platform in the industry right now. It is affiliated with NFL and MLB and NHL teams, and their product is just as strong as their brand power. With DFS prop games for all sports leagues and skill levels, they are sure to have something for you. To get into the action, sign up at monkeyknifefight.com. Use the promo code TNFF on your first deposit for an instant match of up to $50. So if you drop $50 on your first deposit, Monkey Knife Fight matches you, and you've got 100 bones to get in there and start playing. That is monkeyknifefight.com, promo code TNFF, True North Fantasy Football, to be used on your first deposit. Be sure to sign up.
Yeah, so guys, go check out Monkey Knife Fight. It's super fun. Last week, Nate, we were actually 1 for 2 on the props that we chose. We had both Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins hitting 85.5 plus yards. Calvin Ridley, my man, let me down. But, speaking of Calvin Ridley, let's go ahead and get into some of the afternoon games. The first one being the Falcons at the Bucs with a 52-point over-under. Tom Brady coming in at 6,900 this week. That's actually not a bad price point considering what we know Brady is capable of and the weapons around him. Mike Evans coming in at 6,100, Chris Godwin at 6,600, and my favorite play if I'm stacking with Tom Brady, Antonio Brown at 6,000. Why is Antonio Brown my favorite? Because he's $600 cheaper than Godwin and he's $100 cheaper than Mike Evans. And we've seen the chemistry that Antonio Brown and Tom Brady have been able to put together in their short tenure together. And here we are again with Gronk also at the tight end position at 4,700. Tom Brady's got all these prolific weapons around him, and now he gets an Atlanta Falcons defense that can't seem to stop anybody for years ongoing now. Tom Brady's had my Atlanta Falcons number for as long as I can remember. And even saying Tom Brady and Falcons in the same sentence is sending me flashbacks to terrible times just a couple years ago. So, I could run Tom Brady into a hole right now just with how I feel about him and what he's done to my team. But how do you feel about Tom Brady this week against Atlanta?
The point total is great. I'm kind of with you on a lot of the questions. As far as like a specific player, Calvin Ridley, like you said, a lot of guys, they let us down. Brady's fine, but I do kind of have eyes on, Antonio Brown's attractive at 6K. I'm not sure how much exposure I'll have there, but I really like Gronk at 4,700 because, like I said before, tight end is kind of gross this week. I think Gronk is like your safest bet, even in GPP. You don't want to go with the safe guy, but you're looking at a guy that Brady's looking at. He's his best friend. So 4,700, I kind of like that. This is a tough matchup, though. I don't understand. The point total is so high. Like, why is it so hard for us to find somebody we really feel locked in on? It's because the head coaching change at Atlanta. Arthur Smith is there. The offense, the whole team. No offense to your Falcons, brother Matt and Dan, but they didn't look good. But so we're trying to figure out, where we lean in that direction. So this week, even with as far as Pitts goes at 5,200, there's no way I can buy into that. The only guy I really believe in is Gronk at 47.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. As much as I have my Atlanta Falcons bias, Ridley feels a little expensive this week at 7,500. coming off of his week 1 performance where, he started out the game super hot, got peppered with those 3 targets, turned it into 36 yards. And immediately I was like, here we go. Ridley in mid-season form. And then the Falcons struggled the rest of the way through. You mentioned Pitts, 5,200. His price did come up a little bit. And it is starting to get into that price range where, like you mentioned, Gronkowski at 4,700 feels like a much safer play. And I don't know that with Tom Brady that he doesn't necessarily possess the same upside as a Kyle Pitts against this stingy Tampa Bay defense. Ridley, I will say, though, has now 5+ receptions and 50 receiving yards in 8 straight games, which is currently the longest active streak in the NFL by any wide receiver. So his floor is actually rather safe. And I think what we saw from him last week is pretty much as bad as it's going to get. So, Calvin Ridley, if you're looking for a potential shootout, not many people are going to be in on this Falcons offense. So it might be a good way to get a little contrarian and get some exposure to a Calvin Ridley or a Kyle Pitts this week. I think Mike Davis at 5,500 is an easy fade. There's not many running backs that I'm going to feel great starting against this Tampa run D, and Mike Davis is no different. He's kind of just a mediocre, late RB2 as far as I'm concerned this week. And in DFS, he'd have to get a good bit cheaper for me to want some exposure. Let's talk about Ronald Jones, though, coming in at 4,800. Bruce Arians said that Jones will serve as the team's starting running back this week for whatever that means. Are we buying Rojo this week? I mean, the matchup's there. The coach speak is there, if you will. But it's Rojo. What are we doing, Nate?
I was a big Rojo believer coming into, this year. The problem is that he's one mistake away every game of getting benched because there's talent behind him in Giovanni Bernard and, the other guys. I want to believe in Rojo. Bruce Arians says he's a starter, but as soon as he messes up, he's gone out of the game. So if you're playing DFS, my best advice, sadly, is to avoid him because, a mistake could happen. He's obviously prone to fumbles. So it sucks, but it's not something I feel good about, especially right now, coming off a bad week. So let's avoid him this week. Let's see how he does, moving forward. But speaking of moving forward, we're going to kind of move on because we have a lot to cover here. Vikings Cardinals, 51-point over-under. This is a game that is attractive to a lot of people, but, the questions kind of lie to the point where, where are we spending up? Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray is priced at 8,200 on DraftKings. He completed 21 of 32 passes, 289 yards last week, 4 touchdowns, and an interception against Tennessee on Sunday. He had 20 yards and a fifth touchdown via the ground. Murray has pretty much got to be locked and loaded in your lineups. He's the highest priced quarterback, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but
that is correct.
He's the highest priced quarterback this week. So you're paying up big time. So for cash, though, just like last week, Murray was my guy. Cash this week, he's my guy again. We're going to jump across kind of, though. It's a Kirk Cousins of the Vikings at 6,200. This is a guy that's a little bit more questionable because his play is kind of up and down. He had plenty of volume in week 1 against the Bengals. The team did lose, but he was able to throw 7.1 yards per attempt, which is pretty impressive. They played the Cardinals against Kirk Cousins played a lot of single high safety, which was able to free up Derrick Henry quite a bit and the Tennessee Titans. So Zimmer hopes that Dalvin Cook is able to do the same exact thing last week, even though Derrick Henry wasn't really that productive considering, what we expect from him. With their opportunities to take deep shots, if Justin Jefferson and Thielen have tight coverage, they should be pretty good bets for this game. The question is, where do the touchdowns go, in my opinion? I love Jefferson. I love Thielen. I don't want to hate on Thielen. He came through last week. So, where do the touchdowns land? Where are we putting our money this week, Dan? Because between these two guys, I think it's a complete flip of the coin.
Yeah, I actually like both wide receivers this week. Thielen was the efficient touchdown scorer that we remembered from this past year. We all screamed touchdown regression, but here he is week one putting up two of them. So it very well may continue. Adam Thielen really does seem to be like Kirk Cousins' main go-to option there in the red zone. But Justin Jefferson should have had a should-be touchdown where he was ruled down on the 1 yard line, despite the fact that myself personally kind of thought that he did indeed get there, but we'll save that conversation for another day. He still managed to put up a 5 for 71 line on 9 targets, which isn't terrible. And his primary defender this Sunday should be Marco Wilson, a matchup that Jefferson should be able to exploit. This Cardinals secondary is one that we will be targeting all year. It was really just their defensive line that really showed out in week one and punched Ryan Tannehill and co in the mouth. I don't know that this Cardinals defense is really as good as they made themselves look in week one. And if they are able to shut down Dalvin Cook like they did Henry in week one, then if they're going to make that a priority, then I think Kirk Cousins needs to make moving the ball down the field through the air a priority. And I'm really looking for Justin Jefferson to have a stand-up matchup this week.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think a lot of it's going to depend on, the point total, the game flow. We want a shootout in this game. The projected point total is 51 points. That benefits well to guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. We obviously want the touchdowns. We're paying up for, DeAndre Hopkins is he's the highest priced wide receiver on the slate, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to need him to, come through and score a lot of points. So that's something we're going to need. I love Jefferson. I love Thielen. I think it's a kind of a flip of the coin there. I'm not sure where you want to put your money. The price differential is $300. So you can pick or choose. As far as I feel, I would probably actually lean Thielen. If you had asked me that a month ago, I would have said you're crazy, but we'll see how it goes Sunday.
Yeah, let's move on in, though, to the Cowboys and Chargers while we're starting to run short on time. Nate, this is a game that I know you've been raving about, as are many others, with a 55.5 over-under. This is a game that we want exposure to on both sides of the ball, starting with another play similar to my Najee Harris call last week. Ezekiel Elliott was kind of a letdown, but we knew with the offensive line pieces that were missing that it potentially wasn't going to be great for him against that stout Tampa Bay run defense that we mentioned. But this week, his price actually takes a dip and is sitting as low as I can remember in recent years. I don't remember the last time Ezekiel Elliott was priced at 6,200. While others might be deterred by his week one performance, he's still going to see 75% of the touches in one of the more explosive offenses in the league, and a matchup with the Charger with the highest game totals of this slate. I do expect Zeke to have a rebound in a big way this week, and I think that he's left enough of a bad taste in others' mouths that you can get some exposure to him without being, really just swallowed up in chalk play.
That's good. I want no Zeke. Give me Dak. Give me Dak Prescott this week. Mark it down at me all you want. Dak attack. Dak is here. Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, both priced at 6,800 on DraftKings. This is my stack of the week. If you want to make some damn money this week, play my guys. They're going to come through. If you look back to last year, Dak targeted Amari 51 times. 51 times in 4 games. That's unheard of. Last week, in week 1 of this year, 16 more targets. He obviously is going to throw him the ball. How do you not plug these guys in at this price? It's not rocket science, guys. Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, lock them in this week. Please. If they fail, come talk to me.
Yeah, this game right here has stack potential on both teams as far as I'm concerned, and I'll probably have a lined up, one with Herbert and his 2 Keenan Allen, Mike Williams stack, and maybe bring it back with either a CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, or likewise, like you mentioned, Dak Prescott and potentially CeeDee Lamb and Cooper, and bring it back with Mike Williams as well. This is probably going to be one of the heaviest stacked games that we are going to concentrate a lot of our picks on and build around this game. So I absolutely love everything you're saying about this Cowboys offense. I was buying into it big time last year. I hated seeing Dak go down. And I'll admit I had my hesitations heading into week one. Were we going to see the same Dak? They gave him the green light, and even in a tough matchup, he didn't disappoint. If that's what we can expect to see from Dak Prescott moving forward, and especially in lighter matchups, I am with you. I am all in on Dak here in 2021.
Yeah, I love it. Real quickly, I know we're short on time. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Keenan Allen is $7,000. Mike Williams 6,100. You can lock both of these guys in. Both had double-digit targets last week. This is the opposite side of the football against the Cowboys. You can play either one. Keenan Allen's going to be higher owned. Mike Williams would be your contrarian play. So play whichever one you want. If you're in GPPs, Mike Williams might be your favorite.
Yeah, there's legit 4 wide receivers in this game that will probably all see double-digit targets. CeeDee Lamb this past week had 15 targets for 104 yards and a touchdown in the Cowboys' 31-29 loss versus the Bucs. Gallup on IR. The volume is plentiful there in Dallas, and we've really just seen it kind of get restricted down to these 2 guys. Yes, Cedric Wilson is there, but I don't view him really as being much of anything. I think if anything, majority of the volume is going to go to the 2 wide receivers and maybe a slight tick for the 2 tight ends that I don't mind getting a little bit of exposure to this week, just based off of the shootout potential and now the bigger piece of the pie that's potentially available to them. Justin Herbert at 6,700 this past week completed 31 of 47 passes, another 300+ yard game for Herbert, who seems to pretty much do it on a weekly basis. Only 1 touchdown this past week. I think that changes. I think he could absolutely smash value at 6,700, and it's guys like him that make it tough for me to want to pay up for Kyler Murray there at 8,200 this week. So Justin Herbert is a quarterback option that I definitely like building my lineups around, like I mentioned, with the stack of potential that is here with this game alone. It's just I'm really excited. This is probably my favorite game of the week that I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I agree, and I just want to jump real quick, real briefly back on the Chargers wide receivers. Keenan Allen had 9 catches on 13 targets, 100 yards last week. He is Justin Herbert's go-to guy. I know the Chargers didn't look sexy against the Washington football team. That's a tough defense, though, so cut him some slack. Last week, Williams had 8 catches on 12 targets, 82 yards, and a tutty. It was a 2016 win, so I think don't be too bought in on Keenan Allen. He's aging. I'm not dogging the guy at all. I love Keenan Allen, but don't be afraid to play Mike Williams is basically the baseline I'm going for here. Play Mike Williams. He's $900 cheaper on DK, and I think he's going to come through for you this week.
Let's move on into the Titans at Seahawks game while we're running shorter on time here. Now, this point total at 54 is another decent one, Nate, but I know it's not a game that you were particularly too high on. Russell Wilson coming in at 7,500. He didn't do much on the ground with his 5 carries for 9 yards in week 1, but he didn't need to after dissecting that Colts secondary that I told you about earlier on in the episode, completing 18 of 23 passes for 254 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's such a Russell Wilson line right there. 18 of 23, 254 and 4. I mean, there's not many guys that are putting up that line that's got Russell Wilson written all over it, and you can expect the same thing again this week. DK Metcalf coming in at 7,600. Lockett was the bigger beneficiary last week, while DK kind of got off to a slow start. Maybe he wasn't 100% healthy and was just kind of out there running routes. He ended up salvaging the week, 4 catches and a touchdown. I probably still prefer Lockett again this week. As much as I do like DK Metcalf at 7,600, I would prefer him be a tad bit cheaper. I'd even rather play my guy A.J. Brown coming in at 6,900, who logged a potential 52 out of possible 64 snaps on offense in the Tennessee Titans blowout to Arizona, en route to catching 4 of his 8 targets for 49 yards and a touchdown. As we mentioned, Nashville, they just really seem to struggle all over. Arizona really had their number defensively. I do like the Titans to bounce back this week, and A.J. Brown is going to be a significant part of that. Chris Carson at 6,100 rushed for 16 times and 91 yards and caught all 3 of his targets for 26 yards in week 1. He is indeed the clear back there for Seattle and is always a threat to have a 3-touchdown game. This week at 6,100, Nate, are you going to have any Chris Carson exposure?
We're talking a point total of 54 points, and I have no interest in any of these players. I think my gut feeling lies on the fact that I think this finishes far before the projected point total. Vegas is usually pretty accurate, but I think they're wrong this week. Something about this game, I could be majorly wrong, but I'm not buying into a single, not one player from this game am I interested in GPP or cash. It sounds kind of crazy, but there's just nothing here that I want. There's nothing appealing to me. There's nothing that has drawn my eye to this. Maybe A.J. Brown, simply out of respect of the guy's talent, but there's nothing here. There's nothing here I'm interested in, unfortunately. And I've dug deep. I've tried to find interest. I've tried to find loopholes. I've tried to find something I'm interested in, but I'm just not buying into this. I don't feel it. I don't feel the 54 point projected point total. I'm just not there.
Yeah, well, I think there is going to be some options available here. They are just kind of a little bit harder to pin down, perhaps. But I think we could see some fireworks in this game. And I think Chris Carson is actually a guy that I find myself leaning towards. Like I mentioned, we saw Russell Wilson kind of come through with the 4 touchdowns. I think Chris Carson could definitely hit pay dirt here, maybe even twice this week against this Titans defense. So go ahead and sign me up for Chris Carson as my RB at 6,100 this week. Nate, that's it. We've talked about all the games here. I appreciate anybody who did tune in with us this week. And as I mentioned, please do hit the thumbs up, drop us a comment, let us know what we could do to help better prepare you for the upcoming slates on DraftKings. Nate, is there anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been watching. Coach Craig, I see in the comments, thank you for your support. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everybody that's, bought a shirt, that's, checked us out, that's watched one of our videos. Thank you to brother Matt. You can find him on Twitter at DY_nasty dude. It's DY nasty dude, just in case you didn't hear me. But brother Matt is the producer of our show. He's behind the scenes. He's not on camera, but without him, this show is not going to happen. So big thanks to him. True North Fantasy Football at True North FFB. Giant props to them. We're doing a lot of work over there. All of our written work is featured there. Our YouTube work is featured on their YouTube channel. So that's big thanks to them. The support and the love that I've witnessed over the last 3 weeks has been overwhelming, and I love all of you.
Yeah, guys, you see it on the ticker down there at the bottom of the screen. We are actually giving away a SODFS t-shirt. All you have to do is take a picture that shows that you are subscribed to the TNFF network on YouTube. Send it to us via DM at Dynasty Sons on Twitter, and we will put your name into a hat. We are actually going to be selecting the winner for next week's episode, and we will announce it during live on the air next week. That is next Thursday at 9:00. So still time to get in there. It takes 2 seconds. Send us a picture. Let us know that you are subscribed, and we'll be tuning into future episodes of SODFS, and you could win your very own shirt. I do appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. Brother Matt, hat tip to you always. And Kevin, Devin, Coach, Ty, appreciate all you guys tuning in and helping us get through all these games. Coach, you are the 11th man, 12th man, whatever man it is. We really do appreciate you, man.
Yeah, big time. Without the support that we're getting, there'd be no reason to do this show. So I just want to send a big thank you, a big love you to everybody that watches, to Brother Matt behind the scenes. This isn't going to happen without each and every one of you guys.
Yeah, and until next time, man, we really do appreciate you guys. Go enjoy the rest of your Thursday night football.
SODFS is for entertainment only and to add value to your sports experience. We give you our advice and strategy that we will employ ourselves. SODFS is not intended for those under the age of 18.